My wife passionately kissed a man at her company party while I stood behind watching it all. When I walked up, she shamelessly said, "You're mistaken." I calmly told her, "You just ended our marriage," and turned away without looking back. At first she did not see me. She was too busy kissing him. Slow, deliberate, with both hands resting on his chest, as if they were the only people on earth. It was not a drunken kiss. It was not a dare. It was not just a peck. It was the type of kiss you give to someone you have kissed before. Music was playing, something upbeat and cheerful, but all I could hear was the wind in my ears and the glass in my chest shattering. I could have stayed there frozen forever, but my legs moved. I don't remember ordering them to. I walked straight towards them. No one stopped me. No one noticed. The world kept spinning as if it was not falling apart. The guy saw me first. He took a step back as if I were just another guest looking for the bathroom. Then she turned around. Her lipstick was smeared. The exact color I bought her last Christmas. The one she said made her feel dangerous. She blinked as if she were confused for a second. Then her eyes turned cold. No guilt. No regret. Just empty. As if she had already prepared for this moment and had rehearsed it in her head. I opened my mouth, and what came out was not anger. It was not rage. It was something worse. It was calm. "You have just ended our marriage." She did not even flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, smiled, and said, "You are wrong." And at that moment, I knew something I could never unknow. This was not the beginning of the betrayal. It was the end of the performance. And I had just stumbled into the final scene. She did not chase after me when I turned and walked away from that rooftop. She did not call me. She did not apologize. She did not cry. I kept waiting to hear footsteps behind me, heels clicking rapidly on the patio tiles, her strained voice saying my name. Nothing, just silence and muffled music as I headed for the elevator. Inside the elevator, I looked at my reflection in the metal walls. I looked like a man who had no idea what had just happened to his life. I kept replaying it over and over. The kiss, the look on her face, the little smile when she said I was wrong. I thought maybe she was drunk. Maybe she panicked. Maybe that was her way of trying to deny reality. But no, that look was not fear. It was not shame. It was control. She did not look like she had been caught. She looked like she had been waiting for me. Back in the car, I sat in the parking lot for half an hour before I could even turn the key. My hands were shaking. I felt as if I had just found a stranger wearing my wife's skin. It was as if I did not know her at all. But at the same time, small moments from the past few months started to pop into my head faster than I could filter them. The canceled weekend trip to St. Spark for a last-minute deadline. The long showers while her phone was always on don't disturb mode. The sudden interest in journaling. Although I never saw her write a single word, the perfume on her scarf that was not hers. The 3 times I woke up alone in bed at 3 in the morning, only to find her checking emails in the kitchen. I wanted to believe it was just a mistake, a terrible, awful lapse in judgment. I wanted to believe she would say she was sorry and beg me to understand, but my gut told me otherwise. That moment on the rooftop was not an accident. It was deliberate. It was public. It was designed to end something. I drove home numb. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not even know what to feel. Just this cold heaviness pressing on my chest like I was wearing a wet coat made of bricks. When I got home, everything seemed too normal. Our dog, Fran, wagged her tail. The dishwasher was humming. The living room lamp was still on. Her favorite blanket was on the couch. Nothing seemed to indicate that a marriage had just imploded. And then I saw her iPad on the dining room table with the screen still on. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I opened it without a passcode. She never used one. She always said, "What do I have to hide?" Apparently, everything. I did not intend to snoop. I swear. When I first saw the screen glowing on the dining room table, I just wanted to turn it off, save the battery, keep the house looking normal, as if it had not just become ground zero. But my finger hesitated over the button, and I looked down out of pure instinct and saw that her iMessage messages were still open. There were no names, just initials. One conversation was with someone saved as C. I already knew who C was. I had just seen him devouring my wife's lips on a rooftop as if he had been doing it for months. I tapped on the conversation with my stomach tightening and my hands clammy. "C, you looked so good in that dress tonight. I wish I could have taken you home. Michelle, you will soon. Just be patient. He is slow, but he is not stupid." I read that line 5 times. He is slow, but he is not stupid. That was supposed to be about me. Was I he? Or was I in denial, reading too much into things? I kept scrolling, needing more than just a suspicion. And there it was. A message from a week ago dated at 1:42 a.m. when I thought she was in bed next to me, asleep. Michelle, he still thinks I'm doing nightly reports. I told him I was up worried about the IVF stuff. He bought it, of course. He wants to believe I'm still trying. There was a moment of complete silence inside me, not just around me. In me, as if my thoughts had stopped. My pulse slowed. I suddenly felt outside of my own body, as if I were floating above myself, watching a loser read the evidence of his own ruin. And then the rage crept in. Not loud, not explosive, just heavy, as if my blood had turned into wet sand. I kept scrolling. More texts, more lies, more inside jokes between them about me, about my predictable routines, about how I always cooked on Thursdays, about how pathetically grateful I was whenever she initiated anything physical. They were laughing at my effort, my patience, my sincerity. There was even a picture, me asleep on the couch with the TV on in the background. A picture clearly taken without my knowledge. The caption, "While the husband sleeps, the queen makes plans." I slammed the iPad on the table, but I did not break it. I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but a part of me needed to keep it. Proof, something real, something undeniable. Not because I was going to expose her, not yet. I did not even know if I could. I just wanted to look at it the next time she tried to convince me that maybe I had misunderstood, because I wanted to believe it was not real. Even with proof, even after the rooftop, a part of me still hoped to wake up and have it all be a dream and find her in the kitchen humming while making coffee, asking me if I remembered to take out the trash. But instead I was alone in that dimly lit dining room, breathing like I had just run a marathon, staring at a device that in 15 minutes had blown a hole in everything I believed about the last 7 years of my life. And as I stood there in that silence, a single, terrifying thought forced its way to the front of my mind. What if this was never about the affair at all? What if it was about getting rid of me? I did not sleep that night. I lay on the edge of the bed, stiff as a corpse, barely breathing. The room was in complete darkness, except for the soft glow of the night light from the hallway, the one she insisted we keep on since she read that article about sleepwalking being triggered by absolute darkness. I remember thinking it was a strange excuse at the time, but like everything else now, it felt like a detail I had been manipulated into accepting. She came home at 1:23 a.m. I heard the garage door, the soft jingle of her keys, her heels dropping near the entrance. She moved through the house as if nothing had happened. No panic, no guilt, just soft, measured steps. I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. I could not face her. Not yet. She got into bed, turned towards the wall, and let out a small sigh of satisfaction, as if it had been a good night. I lay there with my muscles tensed, my heartbeat like a clock ticking in my ears. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her awake and throw the iPad in her face, but I did not. Something in my gut whispered, not yet. Watch. Wait, listen. The next morning, she was back to her usual routine, making coffee, playing with the dog, humming like someone who still believed she was untouchable. I remained silent, observant. I was not myself. I was something else now, like a shadow in my own life, just watching from the corner of the room. And that is when I realized the iPad was just the beginning. Michelle kept a shared Dropbox folder on her laptop. Technically, it was ours, used for household things, documents, vacation plans, bills, but I had not checked it in years. She was the organized one. I was the forgetful tech idiot who always asked her where things were. She liked it that way, but this time I opened it while she was in the shower. I used my phone just in case. The folder seemed normal at first. The same categories, the same files, but something was off. The recent activity showed an edit date from 2 nights ago, and it was not for anything financial or personal. It was a subfolder titled House Transfer Documents, Final Draft. My stomach clenched. Inside were PDFs labeled with legal terms I did not fully understand, but the file name said it all. Quitclaim deed.pdf, real property ownership modification.pdf, notary signatures pending.pdf. There were scanned forms with blank spaces for signatures. My name was already typed in, pre-filled. She had drafted papers to take the house. Behind my back, I felt physically sick. I opened another document. It was a spreadsheet titled Timeline, personal/legal separation. At first glance, it looked like a project plan from her office, color-coded cells, tasks, dates, progress columns. But the tasks were not work-related, they were about me. April 4th, start emotionally distancing. April 18th, suggest therapy, but don't follow through. May 2nd, start changing financial logins. June 10th, get a private P.O. box. June 17th, initiate discovery phase on infidelity narrative. June 22nd, involve C in a public incident. Make it visible. I froze on that last line. Make it visible. That kiss on the rooftop was not spontaneous. It was staged. It was scheduled. Suddenly, her smug smile, her calmness when I caught her, it all made sense. She was not surprised because she wanted to be caught. She had designed the moment as the final act of a play. I put my phone down. My hands were shaking again. The realization hit me like a slap in the face. She was not just cheating on me, she was building a case. And the story she was writing did not end with the betrayal. It ended with me as the villain. The next morning was worse than the last. Not because of what I found in the Dropbox folder, not because of the texts I could not unsee, but because she walked into the kitchen as if we were fine, as if I had not seen her kiss someone else, as if she had not planned my emotional breakdown in a spreadsheet. She was wearing that same lavender robe I bought her 3 Christmases ago, the one she used to wear only on weekends when we planned to spend the morning in bed. She was humming again, some cheerful jingle from a TV commercial. She poured me coffee without asking, slid it across the counter like a waitress, and said, "Are you okay? You were a little quiet last night." I stared at her, completely silent, without blinking. She did not flinch. She did not even look guilty. Her eyes scanned me as if she were reading me for updates, trying to gauge how much damage control she would have to do. I wanted to say it. "You kissed him. You kissed Caleb. You smiled in my face and said I was wrong. You planned a fake marriage timeline and drafted legal transfers behind my back." But I did not, because something inside me, the part of me she had not yet broken, whispered one word: advantage. So I said nothing. I blinked, took a sip of coffee, and gave her a tired smile. "Just did not sleep well?" I muttered. She watched me. I could tell she was not expecting that. There was a brief flicker of tension in her jaw, as if her brain had to recalibrate, as if she had expected a fight and my submission had thrown her off. "Long day?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I nodded. She leaned over the counter and said, "I was thinking maybe we should do something together this weekend. Just us, something relaxing." I clenched my hand under the counter. This was the manipulation phase. I recognized it now. She was not trying to fix anything. She was testing the limits of how much she could control the story. She needed me on the record as being fine, smiling, participating, existing alongside her without resistance, so that when she made her final move, she could point to this and say, "See, he was fine, we were happy. He never said anything was wrong." And like the fool she thought I was, I played along. "Sure," I said, even softer this time. "That sounds nice." Her entire posture relaxed. She came around the counter, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Good. I think we need a reset." A reset? That word bounced around my skull like a ricochet, as if all of this were just a misunderstanding, a small bump in the narrative, something to be rebranded. But the truth was, I was not looking for a reset. I was looking for proof. Later that day, while she was working from home in the office with the door closed as usual, I logged into our shared cloud photo account. I did not expect much. She was not careless with those things, but she had recently synced her phone to back it up after she dropped it last week. I thought maybe, just maybe, something had slipped through. And it had. Buried in her automatic life folder were bursts of hidden screenshots, not from her camera roll, but from a private notes app where she had been capturing entire messages, plans, lists, even scripts. Yes, scripts. Paragraphs of rehearsed phrases for future arguments. Practice scenarios, my possible reactions, and how she would steer them. If he brings up the kiss, deny it first, then shift the blame to his emotional distance. If he finds the texts, say it was flirting but nothing physical. Insist on couples therapy. If he threatens divorce, cry. Say you don't recognize him anymore. Say he is being cruel. She had literally prepared for every possible reaction, every choice, every confrontation, as if I were just a stubborn character in a play she had written, and she was the director determined to hit every mark in the script. But that is the thing about rehearsals. They never prepare you for the moment the actor goes off script. That night, lying in bed next to her, I could not stop thinking about the word scripts. How many of our arguments were already written before I even opened my mouth? How many times had I spoken from pain only to have her respond with a line she had rehearsed in the mirror? She was sleeping like a baby beside me, curled up like a woman with nothing to hide, while my body was rigid and wide awake, feeling like I was trapped in someone else's marriage. I wanted to confront her with everything I had. Every instinct in me was screaming for justice. I had the texts, the timeline, the photos, the legal documents, the scripts. But still, something in my gut said, it is not time. Do not just expose her. Outsmart her. And then I remembered Ailey. She was not someone we talked about often, almost never actually. But I remembered Michelle mentioning her once in passing years ago, a best friend from college. They had a massive falling out, something dramatic. I only remembered it because Michelle got strangely cold when I brought up Ailey once, saying something like, "We don't talk anymore. People change. It is better to leave some friends behind." But that look on her face was not annoyance, it was fear. I did not know much, but I knew one thing. People don't completely erase someone from their life unless there is a very good reason. So I found her. It was not hard. Social media, even locked down, leaves a trail. I saw a LinkedIn profile, a few Instagram tags, an old birthday post from someone in Michelle's old sorority. Within an hour, I had an email address. I stared at it for a long time. I had no idea what I was getting into. For all I knew, Ailey hated Michelle for something totally unrelated. Petty drama, jealousy, something old and dead. But then again, maybe not. I wrote something simple, direct, polite, but cryptic enough to pique curiosity. Subject: I know this is random, but it is about Michelle. Hi Ailey. You don't know me personally, but I think we might have something in common or at least a shared concern. I'm her husband. I think something is very wrong, and I believe you might be one of the few people who could help me understand. No pressure. Only if you are willing to talk, I would greatly appreciate it. Wendell. I expected silence or maybe a single line saying, "Leave me out of this." Instead, I got a reply in less than 10 minutes. Wendell, I have been waiting for this email for years. When can we talk? Ailey. My heart dropped to my stomach. I gave her my number. She called me within an hour, and what she told me next changed the way I saw my wife forever. Apparently, Michelle's need to orchestrate reality was not new. According to Ailey, she had done it before with ex-boyfriends, employers, even friends. Ailey said Michelle once faked screenshots to get a girl kicked out of their college dorm. She manipulated a boyfriend into signing over a car to her by convincing him he owed her back pay for emotional labor. She was brilliant, charismatic, calculating. She knows how to tell a story, Ailey said. Her voice was strained. She is always 3 steps ahead. She makes people think she is crazy while she is rearranging the chessboard. I asked her why they stopped being friends. She was silent for a second, then said something that made my blood run cold. She tried to frame me for stealing money from a charity we both volunteered at. She said she had proof. It was all fabricated. I caught her in the middle of the plan, so she burned the friendship and told everyone I was unstable. And they believed her. My throat went dry. That same word again. Proof. Fabricated, staged, scripted. Ailey paused, and then said, Wendell, I don't know what she is planning, but if she is back in the scripting phase, it means she is near the end game. You don't want to be around when the curtain falls. I hung up, staring at the ceiling, my pulse hammering in my ribs. This was not about catching her anymore. It was about getting out before she could write me into the final scene as the villain she needed. The day after talking to Ailey, I could not concentrate. Every sound in the house felt like a trapdoor creaking open. I started watching Michelle like you would watch a wild animal in your kitchen. Carefully, quietly, trying not to provoke it before you figure out how the hell it got in. She acted normal, suspiciously normal, too affectionate, too composed, too smooth, as if she knew the role she was playing and had nailed the audition. I had already seen the scripts, the stage timelines, the Dropbox folder that made me look like a man falling apart on paper. I had read the text conversations with her lover, seen the photos of me taken without consent, and learned from a woman I had never met that my wife had done things like this before. But none of it prepared me for what I found next. It started with a strange email she received while we were watching TV. She was curled up next to me, pretending to care about some baking show while secretly checking something on her phone. I glanced at her lock screen. A notification popped up with the subject, "Draft ready for review. Incident report template." She put the phone away quickly, too quickly, and said, "Work stuff." But she had never put it away from me before. That was new. When she got up to take a shower, I waited a full minute before I went over and checked her laptop, which she had left open on the coffee table. I knew the password. She always said, "Why would we hide things from each other?" The irony would have been funny if it was not so sickening. What I found made my skin crawl. There was a document open on her screen titled, June 2025, Harassment Timeline, Internal Use. I clicked on it. My hands were shaking so much I almost missed the cursor. It was a timeline, a twisted mirror image of the one I had found before, except this one did not track her affair or the transfer of our assets. This one tracked me, or rather a distorted version of me that did not exist. Each entry was a neatly typed and dated lie. April 4th, Wendell verbally aggressive after dinner. No witnesses. April 12th, withheld finances. Refused shared access to checking account. May 1st, raised his voice during a disagreement. Dog visibly startled. May 10th, called me a manipulative liar. Apologized later, but pattern continues. June 6th, physical intimidation during conversation about therapy. None of it had happened, not a single moment, but it was written like a cold, formal, objective report. The kind of language that sounds neutral, but shreds your credibility in a courtroom. The final entry chilled me to the bone. If escalation continues, consider preemptive report for safety documentation. See attachment for draft language. Attachment? There was a separate file. Statement for officer, draft doc. I opened it. She was preparing to report me for emotional abuse, for manipulation, for erratic behavior, and verbal hostility. She even included the part about my unpredictability during the fertility treatments, painting me as an emotionally unstable husband who crumbled under pressure and began to exert controlling behaviors. She did not just want to leave me. She wanted to shatter me so that when she disappeared with her new partner, the world would think she was the brave survivor of a toxic relationship. And worst of all, she knew how to make it believable. I was quiet, withdrawn, isolated from friends. She had set the stage perfectly, one where the audience would not even ask what happened because she had already written the answer. He was never who he seemed. I closed the laptop, went to the kitchen, and gripped the counter until my knuckles were white. I was not afraid of losing her anymore. That part was dead. I was afraid of losing myself, the life I had built, my job, my name, my sanity. But something shifted in me that night. A resolve I had not felt in years. She wanted to frame me, fine, but I now had my own timeline, and it was more honest, more detailed, and it was about to get a lot louder than hers. In the days that followed, I moved like a ghost through the house. Quiet, careful, invisible by design. I stopped reacting, I stopped questioning. I smiled when she smiled, I laughed when she laughed, and I nodded along during fake conversations about our weekend getaway. All the while, I was documenting everything. Every file I had found, every falsified timeline, every screenshot, every staged message, voice note, and draft report. I cataloged it all on a secure, offline hard drive. I made backups. I even met with a lawyer, not one of our shared contacts, but a friend of a friend who specialized in digital evidence, reputation defense, and strategic exits. And then I made my quiet move. I started with the shared Dropbox account. I emptied it, not out of spite, but to block her narrative. She could not edit what was not there anymore, but I did not delete the files entirely. I moved them to a private, encrypted folder that I controlled. Then I logged into the shared bank account and separated our direct deposits. Clean, legal, non-confrontational. Then came the real blow. I filed the lawsuit first. I had enough emotional manipulation, financial deception, a pattern of infidelity, and documented intent to defame. All of it laid out in calm, dignified legal language that did not need to shout to be devastating. When she was served with the papers, she was still in her robe, drinking coffee, checking emails, completely unprepared for the version of me that had finally woken up. At first she played confused. "Wendell, what is this?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "You told me I was wrong that night on the rooftop, remember?" She flinched, just a little. "Well," I continued, "you were right about one thing. I was slow, but I'm not stupid. She looked at me as if waiting for a punchline, but there was not one. Just silence, a peaceful, undeniable silence of the kind that only comes when you have already won and don't need to gloat. Over the next few days, she unraveled in small, abrupt bursts. She tried to get emotional. She tried to flip the script. She claimed I was abandoning the marriage without warning. I did not take the bait. I did not yell. I did not even respond half the time. Instead, I moved out temporarily. I took the dog first. I found a short-term rental through a colleague's contact and gave myself space to breathe without looking over my shoulder. The lawyer worked fast. The evidence was irrefutable. There was no case against me, just a series of manipulative half-truths that dissolved the second they were brought into the light. When her draft incident report came up during the initial mediation, and my lawyer slid a folder across the table containing the file's metadata origins and a written statement from Ailey, Michelle finally stopped pretending. She did not cry. She did not plead. She just quietly deflated like a story that has lost its audience. In the end, she signed without public scenes, without court drama, just signatures and silence, and a single whispered sentence as we were leaving the office for the last time. "You were not supposed to get ahead of me." I did not reply. What was there to say? She did not know it yet, but I was not just walking away from her. I was walking into a life where I no longer had to act, where I could breathe without waiting for the next shoe to drop, where I was not the supporting character in someone else's script. And in that silence, I realized something else. I was free, not broken, not destroyed, not humiliated.